Just a couple housekeeping rules. If you're joining, please mute your mics until after the presentation is over. Because we're also recording this, so students can get a copy to add to their websites. We'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of every presentation. If you don't want to voice your question, you can put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to read it to the group that's presenting, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and Jacob, you are in charge. So you get your presentation up, and away we go.
What?
Not Jacob, Caleb. I'm sorry.
All right.
You
Okay,
good?
hold on. Yeah, I'm just figuring this out really quick.
Okay, so it's the present now, and then you click on the icon that comes up, and then it'll hit the share button. Well, you didn't have to leave the meeting. So we will expect some technical difficulties as we're figuring this all out, even though we've had some chances to play with the Google Meet platform. People are just having a bit of a stumbling block.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, for some reason it just kicked me out. Let me try again.
Okay, if you're having difficulties, Caleb, I can present your slides from here. You just have to tell me to move to the next slide.
Okay, I'll
Would you
try.
rather do that? What's that?
Yeah, we can do that, I guess.
Okay, and do you have a screen so we can see your handsome face?
I can try my camera. Last time it didn't work. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it'll turn on.
Okay. The screen should be loading the presentation now. There we go.
All right, do you want me to start?
When you're ready.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my passion project. For my project, I decided to create a home security system. According to a survey conducted by Honeywell back in 2015, 2/3 of American citizens say that they do not feel safe in their households. Since then, the statistics have only increased. You can go to the next slide. Home safety has always been a concern for everyone. Although modern technology is very much advancing, there are still concerns and problems. In fact, you have a 1 in 6,000 chance to be a victim of home invasion, which is higher than getting struck by lightning, which is 1 in 700,000. Creating home security systems and technology has always been a somewhat odd interest I've had for a while. I've finally decided to start a project on it. With the skills and knowledge that I've developed throughout the school year in the academy, from the actual programming components to the technical aspects, this project definitely relates to what we've been learning throughout the year, as it has involved both electrical engineering aspects and programming aspects. You can go to the next slide. Now, here are some problems that I've ran into throughout the project. Whilst creating the project, I've ran into many challenges and problems. One of the major problems that took a while to resolve was the sensor. Occasionally, it would just detect random motion when nothing was actually moving, sending constant notifications to your devices and playing a loud, annoying alarm. After looking over the issue, I was able to identify the cause of it. It took me almost 3 hours to find that the code was just a loop that would constantly say the sensor has detected motion, even though it hasn't. After the program was fixed, the sensor would still detect random motion in the room. This was all resolved by simply calibrating the sensor. Another thing I ran into was circuitry. Since I'm not that strong with circuits, I've had a lot of trouble putting everything together, which is another reason why I chose this project, because it was a chance to develop and build my knowledge with circuits. To start, I had little knowledge on how a circuit, or specifically a breadboard, works. On top of that, I had to know what pins on the Raspberry Pi were used for what. A rather simple solution to this was reading countless articles and watching many tutorials on how to write a circuit with what I had. Another thing was resources. I didn't have many of the major components or parts that I required to create my project, such as sensors and resistors. Thankfully, I was able to obtain these from the school, courtesy of Mr. Everett. Now, probably the biggest challenge I came across was the notifications. The notifications and emails that were supposed to be sent to your phone continuously stopped working. After 2 days, I discovered that the program I was using had to be ran on a certain version of the Raspberry Pi. And every time I turned it on, it would revert back to the most recent version. Eventually, the program just stopped working. Now, a resolution to a lot of these problems was online resources like YouTube or just articles. You can go to the next slide. Now, these are 2 videos that I made of me testing my project. Am I allowed to show those, or?
You betcha.
All right.
Pull them up.
So, this one was, I believe, me testing the sensor with a LED to make sure that the sensor worked.
I think we have to download the video before we can play it.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's fine.
Give me 2 seconds. Oh, it might work now.
So what it is it's just a motion sensor that I hooked up to a pretty basic circuit to make sure that it actually worked with an LED. Obviously, it worked for the most part. However, sometimes it would just detect random motion when I was just sitting there and the light would turn on. Luckily, it was a pretty easy solution. Now, the second video was the same circuit, except it was hooked up to the alarm that I made. Everything worked except the alarm was very, very quiet, and for some reason, when I picked it up and dropped it, it would play a louder sound than it would if it was just sitting there. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, now this is my story on why I joined the academy and what I've learned throughout the year. Ever since I was orientated about the academy back in grade 9, I've always had an incredibly deep interest and passion for joining mechatronics. In grade 7, I was introduced to robotics and coding. I started out learning Scratch as a simple starting point. After a month or 2, I believe that I became rather fluent in the language. From there, in grade 8, I was introduced to Python by a great friend of mine. He taught me the general basics of the language and how to do certain things. As of now, I still continue to do mostly Python projects, as I believe it is what I'm most fluent in. Since then, I started learning languages like Java, Lua, C#, and other languages. After learning these things, I realized that it is a possible thing that I could do after high school. So when given the opportunity, I quickly applied to join the academy. Throughout the year, I believe that I've learned a lot within this academy. Although at times this year is rather confusing and unorganized for some people, including myself. However, I'm a lot more confident in doing certain things. I learned how to make a technical drawing, which I find rather daunting but so entertaining and useful. I learned how to make CAD models, which I truly value and find fascinating to work and create with, as well as how to operate a 3D printer. On top of that, I also became more confident in programming, specifically Python and IDE, as well as some C Sharp. Through these projects, I developed how to piece together electrical components using a breadboard. This is one of the skills that I value a lot. With all these projects and assignments from this year, I believe that I enjoyed the programming portion of it over the other things we did, just because I believe I have more experience in it. However, I certainly enjoyed everything we did throughout the academy. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, these are some takeaways for the project. One of the takeaways is independence or self-direction. I believe that this is a rather important trait to have. The ability to restrict yourself from certain things as well as manage yourself is a rather crucial life skill to obtain to succeed. Another thing I chose was troubleshooting failure. Over the few years I've been into programming and whatnot, I've learned that nothing will ever be flawless in the creation of your projects. No matter who you are or what you do, there will always be at least one issue in regards to troubleshooting. Instead of frowning upon it, like some people do, I actually tend to take it as a learning experience to learn from my mistakes and improve. Another takeaway I took was the importance of student voice and choice. I believe that the fact we have the ability to choose any topic and do anything we please for a project is amazing. It allows us to explore our interests and skills. I've always enjoyed doing programming and engineering things to work how I want it to. And to have a project where we can do anything we want is something that I admire and I'm looking forward to do. We can go to the next slide. All right, this concludes my presentation on my passion project. Do you guys have any questions?
So the floor is open to question, folks.
Hi, Caleb. Sunny here. Very ambitious. Congratulations. From what I can see, there's at least 3 engineering disciplines in your passion project there. Because of, you're able to pull together so much, if you were to have another resource, like in terms of another person, how would that have helped you out? What would have been the ideal engineering type of person to help you out in your project? Because from what I see, you have like mechanical, electrical, and software in there.
Right. I believe if I had another person in my project to help me out, I could have managed my time a lot more better, and we could have got more done. So like, I could have had help with the electrical engineering aspect of things, like adding keypads and the wiring the breadboard and all that. But on top of that, I could also get help with the programming in some parts too. But that's just what I'd say.
And also, I know, like, one of the things I'm most impressed with is even the sensors that you're using and so forth. What is probably one of the biggest takeaways from this project that you see yourself applying in even next year and future projects?
Well, the actual electrical aspect, going back to that, is the sensor is rather, in my opinion, is interesting to work with. I thought that it was pretty fascinating to use because you could actually calibrate it with these 2 little knobs on the top, and you can basically apply that when you're creating systems like these to literally anything, I guess. But
no, totally agreed. Yeah, that translating that software to electrical, like I said, very impressive. Thank you. I enjoyed the presentation.